Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of the Variety Gaming Podcast. Today's featured game is the cooperative, puzzle-filled Race Against Darkness, We Were Here, and later we will take a peek into the Gamer's Guide to the Galaxy and discuss how you can game comfortably while away from home. As always, I almost don't have a beard anymore because I've been traveling and ripping it out. Co-host Rayu, how are you doing, man? Finally back from your business trip, and are you excited about We Were Here?
I am. This was a fun game. I was glad that you picked it. I think this is the second game you've picked since we've been doing this show that has been forced co-op for us to play together, figure out together, and it was interesting. It was a very interesting title. Before we get into it, the name of it, again, We Were Here, developed and published by Total Mayhem Games. The description is: lost in a frozen wasteland and split up from your partner inside an abandoned castle. The only possession you have left is a walkie-talkie with a familiar voice on the other end. Can the two of you find your way out in time? On Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox platforms around the world. This was released February 3rd, 2017. HX, I want to hear your thoughts on this, bud. This was your pick.
I found this game because of the Steam We Were Here franchise sale. There's actually quite a few different games in the series. They're all the same premise. It is a strictly co-op game, so you have to have two people. You can't play this by yourself. And like the description says, a majority of the gameplay is communication in between the both of you. There is obviously puzzle solving and some certain other things that you have to do. I won't give too much away, but a majority of this game is really all about communication, and that does carry through the rest of the games in the series. We decided to pick the very first one because, I mean, it's a good idea to start with the first in a majority of things, for at least in terms of games and getting to know, especially a game like this, getting to kind of know the story. Not that the story has a big part in this, but at the very least, you kind of see the evolution of gameplay throughout the different games in the series. And also, the first one is free. So if you're interested in a strictly co-op game, this is definitely the game for you. And we covered back in episode 11 under a recurring segment called Why So Negative, where we did a game with overwhelmingly negative reviews. That game was called Malice. Go check that episode out because that was a lot of fun. This game is, and it's funny because we both have the same note and the same thought when we were talking about the game. This game is Malice done correctly. Strictly co-op. The puzzles are not right away apparent in what you have to do. One person is an explorer, one person is the librarian. The librarian and the explorer are dropped in separate rooms that don't, at least as far as I could tell, don't connect from the couple of hours that we played. We didn't beat all of the puzzles in the first one, but I feel like we got really close. I think we may have only had one or two more. The tough part about the game is that if you die, you have to start all over. And the puzzles slightly change, but stay relatively the same in terms of how you solve them. So that made it a little bit easier. Malice was they just drop you in there. There's literally nothing, like basically nothing. No, not even a little highlight of, hey, this is what you're supposed to do or anything in this game. And I'll talk mostly about the beginning puzzles so that those who want to play the game still have some stuff to experience. But in this game, at the very least, the important things that you needed to do were either very prominently placed or highlighted, or they took up the entire room, so it was very clear what you were supposed to do. Malice definitely not the case there. So it was a lot of fun, and especially as we started to beat different puzzles and unlock things, and this is how you do this, this is how you do that. That's when it really started to feel good to play. In the beginning, when both you and I were just we didn't know what to do. We were just walking around looking. Oh, you were describing this is this book says this on the back, and I was trying to somewhat interpret it and how it fit into the room I was in. Turns out we were both incredibly wrong in what we were supposed to do, but even so, that first little bit is kind of frustrating, but as you slowly develop that communication and okay, well, oh, this is the highlighted stuff. Now I see this is how you solve this puzzle. And then you go into the next puzzle and there's I wouldn't say frustration, but it's more of okay, now we really need to describe the room in order for us to both figure out what is important. And so it can be difficult at first, but again, the more that you play the game, and especially if you play with somebody who can, you can work together and problem solve, it ends up feeling really good to solve the puzzles. And then as soon as something unlocks, it's like, oh my goodness, wait a minute, hold on, you just did something, and now this part in this room unlocked. And so now I run over here and okay, well, what about this room? And I mean, being on we started off, I was the explorer and you were the librarian, but we ended up switching. And for me, it was a lot of fun being the librarian to explain the different pictures and then, okay, you need to do this thing, you need to do that thing. And hearing on your end, Ryu, being the explorer, wait a minute, hold up, the room is filling with water. Can you can you do this quickly? And sitting there and just like, yeah, okay. Oh, well, yeah, I need to figure this. Okay, yep, this is what you do here, and maybe this, maybe that. Oh, I don't know. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, we got to start over. Okay, and I mean, the feeling of stress is there. You don't have an express time limit. I don't see there's no like little ticker up at the top. Sometimes just one of the characters dies and you just need to solve the puzzles faster or you need to do something different, and you also need to talk and cooperate together and communicate and figure out, yeah, it's true. You could just keep switching back and forth in order to figure out the puzzles, but like it's not the fun of it, at least from my mind, is okay, let's go through the game, on one side, maybe swap over to the other. And it's interesting to me because while you are solving these puzzles and communicating and working together, it was I couldn't find a true story. And maybe it's because I was so focused on solving puzzles and communicating my surroundings and all of that stuff that I wasn't picking up little pieces here and there of the story. The description and the intro cutscene are kind of, again, comparing it to Malice, they don't give you a whole lot of information to go on. Like, you really are, it's just, it shows you wandering in a frozen wasteland and there's the castle and some stuff happens and you're split up. And in the beginning, you pick up your walkie talkie and you're just trying to figure out really how to get out. That's the main, right? Trying to get out. But like, why are you there? All of that type of stuff, just there isn't any of that. Does it matter? I don't think so. Will it be explained later on in future games? Perhaps. But despite there not necessarily being this like storytelling of, oh, you unlock this and then there's a cutscene and it tells you more information in order to figure out the next puzzle and all of that stuff. Nope, that's not it. You are just straight solving puzzles. As soon as you solve one, move right on to the next puzzle, solve that one, Oh, you didn't solve it in time. Go back, solve puzzles that are kind of similar, but it's not exactly the same. It's different answers, So you do have to communicate for example, in the first puzzle, you have to communicate the different glyphs in order to press them in the right sequence in order to unlock the door. Well, those glyphs change in sequence every time, and I believe there's another aspect to that puzzle that also changes. And so, communicating that and okay, then we solve this puzzle and now we go over here and oh, well, this is slightly different. And as the puzzles build in complexity, then of course the different factors that change also provide difficulty. So it's not just, okay, well, here we are. We've been running this. We've died at the same spot. And now here we are running through the first 20 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. And it's just, on reflex and whatnot. It's not like that. It is, you still have to engage the brain and think and talk it out. And that's what I at least really appreciated. And I did get all the We Were Here games, and I think we will probably cover at least one more in the future because to me, this is like one of the co-op games of all time / co-op franchises, right up there with Overcooked in terms of strictly like this is obviously it's strictly a cooperative game, but even Overcooked, like yeah, you can play Overcooked by yourself, but who really does that, right? That game is meant to be played with people, and it's not a competitive game. It's strictly cooperative, and I think that it's super cool, especially in the way that it forces you to cooperate with each other. But Rayu the Explorer, I've babbled enough about being a librarian. I've probably talked enough to write a book about it. What happened in your travels while we were here?
So I did have to suffer through a bunch of those dad jokes throughout this whole adventure, just for the audience. Things like that were the hardest challenge of any explorer, as Indiana Jones well knows. But honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head with this is what Malice should have been. The forced cooperative, forced in-game communication, like, hey, you're going to be limited with what you can see, what your partner can see. You have to work together. Now, granted, Malice putting us kind of together to solve the puzzles together in the different areas was cool, but I did appreciate the fact that the experience was different. Now, when we did start, I did start out as a librarian, so disclaimer, there was a little bit of an advantage on my end as the explorer because I had an idea about what I was looking at and what I was remembering from when I was exploring the librarian area. And that I felt like kind of helped us kind of get that ball rolling. So there is a big advantage to being able to do that. But describing your area meticulously, that's something I will put is you have to describe what you're seeing, everything. Because what may not seem important to you as the explorer is going to change what the librarian tells you, and vice versa. At least in that first area where you're trapped in the one room, there's not a lot that you can interact with, and it's like, oh, this is the door. Once I was on the adventurer side or the explorer side, and I was looking, and I was like, oh, I remember back in the librarian area there was a sheet with two eyes, and there were alternating colors, and the symbols matched that. So I would just tell Atrax, hey, these are the two colored eyes that I see. And Atrax, you told me this symbol, this symbol. Open it up, boom, door's open. We're in the game now. And what I will say is that the experience I had inside the dungeon, like the actual dungeon with the doors, and it was eerie. I mean, the music was eerie. The fact that I would like turn a corner, like going down a path, thinking I don't know, and I would see something move. I'm like, dude, there's something down here, man. And we'd go, and I would turn a corner, I'd see something else. I'm like, there's something down here. I don't want to go this way. And it's just stuff like that that really kept the immersion going between the music, the atmosphere, like everything was creaking and groaning and just it made it feel like I was in a old castle dungeon, which in this game that's kind of what you're at. You're exploring everything. Even now you mentioned the timer, the timer part of it. The really cool thing, now we didn't see it on your end because we unfortunately didn't get out of that beginning area because we both did very poorly at describing things. But when I got to the second area with the strange picture and the symbols, there's nothing like it's candlelit. And like when we were sitting here describing it the first time when it said, darkness overran or reached us or whatever the end screen was, the light started just dropping and it started like the candles would start to go out, and I thought it was because I like picked a symbol or picked a wrong symbol, or that's just what it started doing. So again, the immersion was brought to another level. The game is like, okay, you've spent way too long in this area. Like you need a reset. And so it kind of just does that to where the immersion continues and you feel the pressure like it's getting dark in the room, and then you lost. Or oh, cool, we figured it out and the next door opens and all that kind of thing. It was really cool, the attention to detail the developers have put in or did put into this game, and I'm sure that continues throughout the rest of the games. Obviously, it's a successful franchise because of how many titles there are. The push to talk requirement, to pivot to that, was really, really nicely done. It wasn't an open mic like we have on Discord or that you have like in Malice, for example, where we were able to just talk to one another. No, this was a legitimate walkie-talkie, and if you're pushing the push to talk button and the other person's pushing the push to talk button, guess what? No one's hearing anything. You could be giving me the answer to the where in the world are we going, and I would not hear anything. And that's something, again, it's the small details. An actual walkie-talkie would make the sound, you see the person's talking, you have to like, is that the end? Like, are you done talking? I don't want to push the button. So, like, we're sitting here. I was like, Atrax, you got to say over after you finish. That way I know you're done. And it's like, over, over.
It was literally the Family Guy meme with Brian and Stewie. What? I even have to say over if my sentence is over? If your sentence is what, Brian? Over. Oh man, that was one of my favorite parts too. And that's the other really quick to interject. That's the other fun thing about the push to talk requirement and the walkies like not being compatible like normal walkies would be. If you're pushing and talking into it, it's not going to speak out to you. Is that when that timer starts like ticking down, you really have to clear the comms and work together as a team to calmly describe, this is what we need. Okay, then do this, and back and forth, because if you just start talking over each other, then you're not going to get through it and you're just going to get frustrated.
No, 100%. And there are so many different things that you have to be patient with each other, because there were some parts where like I wasn't pushing the talk button to tell Atrax what I was experiencing, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, if I flip this, I can go do this, and I flip this and I can do this. There's only so much information that the librarian can give you, which was really cool. Not one side had the answer to the other. You needed each other to figure it out. Specifically in the dungeon area, where there's different colored gates, and there you have to do this gate to get to that gate to get to this gate to flip this switch, and then you got to do it in reverse order. And I don't have the map, but Atrax has the map as librarian, so he could tell me you got to go through this gate to get to this switch, and I'm able to do it. But Atrax can't see that I'm like, okay, this gate is still closed, but I remember that switch is way back here, so then I have to backtrack all the way over there. So while he's like, this guy's taking forever, it's like 2 switches, I'm like, you don't understand. I gotta walk the length of the dungeon first. So, and then, what was it? When we got to the outside portion, when we're outside, it's snowing, there's a chessboard, there's a generator, like, describing that to Atrax, just saying, hey, I'm outside. it's snowing, it's cold. This is much like my experience in Colorado when I was for my business trip. um, but there's just a giant chessboard and a generator. But again, because I remembered what I saw in the librarian's area, we were able to kind of get to the actual puzzle portion of it, and telling Atrax the projector upstairs. The really cool thing that I appreciated about that interaction in itself was one, the fact that Atrax was like, oh, E this to this, and like he was using chessboard grid terminology, which was great to know that he was able to pick that up. But
I didn't pick it up. The board was labeled. Disclaimer, the
oh,
board was labeled. That's why I was using it, because I figured it was the easiest method
gotcha.
of describing the coordinates. Okay, pawn goes from E2 to E4, whatever.
Yep. But see that, and that's the thing is that as the adventurer, I'm sitting there, I'm like, HI, there's snow everywhere. I don't see this, that. You're gonna have to describe something to me, like what goes where. And then it would, but like that much detail was put into it because they figured, okay, people will say like grid stuff, like no, let's make it harder, let's make it snowing outside. And then that was another thing too. Each environment we were in had a different kind of timer to it. So like I mentioned, the second area after you first start, where you're in the symbols and the candlelit area, how if you were there for too long or if you got something wrong, I'm still not sure which exactly triggered it, but the fact that the room started getting darker and darker and darker, and then eventually it went to black screen. Well, when we were outside and doing the chessboard, it was getting colder and colder, so my screen was just like I was losing vision of what the board pieces were doing, and eventually it just, oh, you froze to death. And I'm like, okay, that's a really cool little, again, quality of life immersion thing that they've brought into it. So that was nice. I do wish there was a little bit more of like a reset, like you just reset from the checkpoint type thing. Like if I'm freezing to the point that I can't see out of my screen, like can we just like reset this, or do I have to sit here and wait for me to actually freeze type thing? That was the only nitpicky thing I have when it comes to that thing. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to go through this game with the forced co-op, the limited communications that we could have, the fact that we had to work together. But it does uh, put a really big staple. I know we mentioned back in the Overcooked episode where teamwork is like super important the further in you go to that. Well, I'm sure that the harder the puzzles we're going to get, because there were doors. I remember that there were doors in the librarian's area that you couldn't get, that you couldn't open, and who knows what was going to be behind those doors that could have led us to more puzzles and the rest of the adventure stuff. I mean, we got outside the castle, but then we got to get back inside the castle. Like really well done, really nice game. I appreciate that even now with this game being as old as it is from 2017, there were still public lobbies open. Like when I would go to open up to join Atrax for our game for this episode, there were still a couple of public lobbies open with this game there. So something that, again, if you want to try this out, I would highly recommend you do it kind of how we did. Have somebody that is, going to jump in and play with you, just so you can kind of get into the game instead of waiting for, a public queue to pop.
I
Anything
would
else, Atrax?
I would honestly give this game a 9 out of 10. Like it's you can't, first of all, it's free, but even so, I don't know how long, like how many more puzzles we had after the chess one, but I would pay probably $5-10 for this game, like for sure. It's not very long, only a couple of hours, and you can only play, like one side each, I would argue, unless there's a way to make it more replayable and really jumble the puzzles around. I don't know, but that's my over, like I rate this game very highly, and I'm excited to play more of these games in the series, and even beat this one, because I had a blast with it. Speaking of blasts, there have been all sorts of bombshells going on, breaking news all over the place with our game of the season, Foxhole. The day after we recorded the previous episode, War 117 ended. Those blue-wearing blatherskites won. Unfortunately, now a pre-patch war will commence Wednesday, November 13th, so it's already started, and it will run until Monday, November 18th, 6 a.m. Eastern, when the our next episode goes live. But either way, it's just a pre-patch war. The goal of the pre-patch war: perform stress testing of the update online infrastructure in live environment. They want to get things right for patch 59, and the reason that they really want to get things ready for patch 59 is because that's where the infantry update will be happening, and that is a combat overhaul. It is a pretty in-depth thing. I was watching the developer vlog on it. I didn't get all the way through the entire, I think it was an hour and a half, but I watched at least a good half hour of it at work, and it was really cool to see how this game has progressed. Now, we're coming into it pretty late, but they were describing how the Inferno and naval warfare updates in the past couple of years were much larger scale updates. Inferno, they added fire, obviously, and some vehicles and other things like that. In the naval warfare, that's when they added in ships, but also some other things with the water features like islands and all sorts of that cool stuff. And so those were really like game stretching updates. Now, this year, they're more focused on refining the game. So they did some previous, apparently, I didn't know this. They said this in the devlog. The last time that they had focused on infantry, cover wasn't in the game. Like they had added cover to the game the last time they focused on the infantry combat because they've been so focused with like artillery and like all this other stuff. So it was cool to hear the devs talk about that. And they're really focusing on refining the game, and the infantry update is something to really be excited about because they're focusing on movement, gun suppression, the encumbrance of everybody, stealth. Rayu, you're going to be really excited about the stuff that they're doing with gas masks and the gas grenades. There's new anti-tank weaponry. There's going to be adjustments to close quarters combat. There's going to be specific battlegrounds. I didn't really get to see a whole lot of what those were, but they mentioned battlegrounds. They're going to be adjusting the medics. There's equipment loadouts now, so you can make like a loadout, kind of like a Call of Duty style loadout. And new vehicles, also muddy vehicles. So the mud, if you drive through like puddles of mud and stuff, it will add encumbrance to your vehicle, and you can wash them off with either buckets of water or like I think it's like the fire truck nozzles and stuff like that, and a whole bunch of other really, really cool stuff. So lots is coming for Foxhole. I know we've been kind of in a lull right now, and the pre-patch war is going on, all of that type of stuff. But the next war is really something to be excited about because the infantry update is coming. And one last thing to also mention, in 2025, next summer, is Foxhole Airborne, which will be air warfare, paratroopers, air supply drops. You'll have like gunships that will require multiple people in order to fully utilize, bombers, like all that type of stuff. Obviously, paratroopers, so you'll have like big cargo planes, all sorts of really, really cool stuff for Foxhole coming in the future. And the last thing is they're doing a little bit of IRL merch. So Foxhole patches, physical patches that people like to add to backpacks or coats or I don't know, whatever else you add patches to. They'll be doing one for the wardens and one for the colonials, and they'll be selling them. So it'll be like kind of fun. I think this is the first time they said that they'll be doing actual merchandise for Foxhole. So Yeah, that's also cool stuff that was announced in the last week or so for our game of the season.
See, that's something that I appreciate. They're taking their time with rolling out the different types of combat that we can experience. Like we've got our infantry, we've got our ground warfare with the artillery. Now of course we have the naval warfare, which has been really cool. Like we experienced what it was like to be on a boat to make a beachhead. We've experienced what it's like to run vehicles. We haven't really gotten into a full tank as of yet, but these are the things that are really cool to experience at least once or twice while you're kind of trying to find your niche, like what you want to do to contribute to the war. The fact that in a year or so, you said 2025, summer of 25, we're going to
Hmm.
be getting air warfare. So now you're going to have pilots, and you're going to have people jumping out of planes, and you're going to have, anti-air guns, and trying to make a supply run while taking fire from the ground. And like everything's going to have to work because it's like you got to establish your beachhead if you're going for the coast, and you got to try and push it back so you can get your air supply drops because now you've got too many people on the roads, and it's just more chaos, and I love it.
Dude, and like aircraft carriers. And
Oh,
oh
that's gonna
my
be great.
goodness, dude.
Like,
It's going to be so much fun.
I'm excited for it. Now, the question: are you gonna buy a patch?
I don't know. I'll have to see what the final design is when they come out. I think that they're cool. I genuinely might. I'll consider it. I don't see why not. I could find a couple spots for patches probably. I've got like a gaming backpack and stuff. But we'll see. What about you? Do you think you'll get a patch?
I'll be honest. The last time I purchased gaming merch from the actual company was when New World first launched, and I was on the Marauder faction. I bought
Mm.
Marauder T-shirts.
Oh, okay.
Like
All
I
right.
bought the faction that I was repping. I bought the T-shirt, and I've enjoyed it. Like it's still around, but like I said, my interest for that game has dwindled over the time. So I might. We'll see. Gaming merch is always something that I'm on the fence about for a lot of it because it's like, yeah, I like it. It looks cool, but is this going to be that kind of game that I go back to after so long? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Like you said, I think the design is really the big thing.
Yeah. And you know what is important merch, gaming merch to buy though, is stuff to help you game while you're traveling, which is a great segue into our next segment, the Gamer Guide to the Galaxy. We're going to be opening up a brand new segment here and turning over the pages to give some helpful tips for gamers while traveling. And this idea kind of came up because Rayu, obviously, you have been traveling and you've also been gaming while on the go and doing a good job of it. I mean, we even got We Were Here gameplay while you were on the go. So, professional traveling gamer over there is Rayu. And I myself have traveled a lot and also play games and bring those games along and try my best to feed my gaming addiction while on the go. And so there are some pitfalls that you can avoid, all of that good stuff when traveling. But Rayu, I want to hear your thoughts first on gaming while traveling because I mean, like we've said, you've been traveling the most recent.
That is true, and I do a lot of travel, not just for business, but also for recreation with the family. One thing I will say that is of utmost importance: rechargeable batteries. Especially if you are going to be playing something like Monster Hunter World or any of the Souls-like games, or really anything that just feels more comfortable on a controller as opposed to a mouse and a keyboard. Bring those rechargeable batteries for the controller. If you're going with an Xbox controller, obviously the PlayStation controller, you could just plug in a charger for it because, it's 2024, almost 2025, and for some reason, Microsoft can't seem to figure that out. But anyway, not only rechargeable batteries in the sense for controllers, but battery packs. If you have battery packs that you can leave charging at the hotel or at the airport or even in your car, if you can't get to a plug, charge those portable batteries just so that way, because most of them now do have USB ports, so you can plug in the USB port to charge, say, your Switch or to charge your phone if you're more of a mobile gamer. Any kind of rechargeable batteries or battery packs, I highly recommend getting one. And it's fitting that we're doing this checklist now because it is we're getting into the holiday season. Obviously, in a couple of weeks we have Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Christmas right around the corner. A lot of people may have these things on their shopping list. So take a look on those deals and see what you can get. The next thing on my list is wireless or wired earbuds, not your gaming headsets. If you're like Atrax and I, you probably have gamer head. There's a big dent in your head somewhere from all the actual headsets that you're wearing. I recommend wireless or wired earbuds if you want to go back in time with that, for the sole reason that it allows you to keep gaming in public spaces. So we mentioned traveling. Obviously, if you're going to an airport, the last thing you want is to either play games on silent. Again, if that's your preference, be that as it may. But if you want to listen to the audio or the music that the games have come with, plug these things in. Most game systems have Bluetooth capability, so you can do that if you want to. Again, rolling back into the first point about the battery backup, so you can charge those wireless headphones. It also helps in hotel rooms, especially over this last business trip that I had. I was able to use my wireless earbuds to pair them to my laptop and was able to continue gaming. I was able to use Discord and everything. So that's something that I would recommend. Speaking of laptops, laptop stands. This is a big one for me. With laptops, they do tend to get hot very, very quickly, and those fans can only do so much. And if you leave your laptop laying kind of flat like you would normally use it, it can, in some instances, overheat that laptop very, very quickly, as well as it can overheat it to the point that you can no longer use it until the battery has cooled down. So what I recommend, if you take a look at Amazon or Walmart or a Micro Center may have them, they are just little stands that you can prop your laptop up off of the surface that you're on, whether that be a desk or excuse me, an airline, tray, table, what have you. Just being able to prop it up so that way it has the additional airflow and ventilation to keep it cool, so you can continue those long extended gaming periods. Another thing, download before traveling. If you're going to browse on your shops, like your Nintendo Switch shops, your Steam shops, PlayStation shops, Xbox shops, any sort of digital shop, download those games well before you go on your trip. Public Wi-Fi is an atrocity. Absolute atrocity. Airports are slow, hotels are slow. It's always hit and miss unless you want to pay for the extra Wi-Fi for the premium hotel stays and all that kind of stuff. If you download the games beforehand, then it will give you a much larger variety of games if you do have a bunch of those that you want to try out. I also think this is a great time. Maybe you check your backlog, see games that you've purchased from Steam sales or PlayStation sales that have been single player, more story driven, a little bit slower paced than some of the hustle and bustle games that you may play at home. Take a look at the backlog, download those games ahead of time, so that way you can just have a little bit more variety when you're there, when you're traveling. Lastly, for me is a big thing. Take only what you need. Don't overpack your bag. Don't try to bring your whole gaming setup with you. One, you're going to get charged like crazy, especially from airlines if your bag is overloaded. Then, of course, you got your check bag, and then I'm sure everybody has an airline story where they've lost luggage or had luggage stolen because someone thought it was their bag and they walked off with it or what have you. Things like that happen, so only take what you need. For myself, I've got a small keyboard that I attach to my laptop, as well as a portable mice. It's just a smaller portable mouse. It's just a smaller mouse, and then like I mentioned, I have my wireless earbuds. That's really all that I bring with me whenever I decide to take my laptop with me. I don't bring my docking station with my Switch. I just bring, as I mentioned before, rechargeable battery, the charging cable to it, and then that's kept in a case and that's in my carry-on, so I don't really lose anything. Excuse me. Outside of that, just and Atrax, I think this is on your list too. Make sure that you can replace it. Like, don't take something that's hard to find, that's no longer made, that's something that you like, because even though the hotel's locked, people find ways to get into hotel rooms. So just be conscious of that.
Yep, that is, yeah, it's on my list as well. Bring gear easily replaceable. So you can, even if you buy it, if it's cheap, it's not exactly what you like. Use it at home where you're like comfortable for a couple of hours before you leave. And then it's not so foreign to you. And you're just like, oh, this is my mobile gaming setup. It's just like, so, like buy something that is just, like, yeah, it's just a standard controller. It'll work. And then, oh, security confiscated it for some stupid reason, or it got stolen, or I left it somewhere or whatever. At least I can get a new one, and I know that it's not that big of a loss. It's not, oh, I've had this mouse for years and I love it and it's my favorite mouse, or like my mouse pad that was signed by Faker or whatever. Don't bring that stuff with you. Just leave it at home. It's not worth it. I've lost so much gear, or I've left gear, and it sucks. And even replaceable gear, I left that gear. I'm just like, oh man, now I have to go get another. Like, it sucks to lose gear. Don't make it your only gear. And if it is your only gear, then maybe don't bring it. I Switches and Steam Decks, that type of stuff is a little bit different. I'm mostly talking about your headsets, your mice, keyboard, gaming mat, whatever. I wouldn't bring extra monitors. Like you said, take only what you need. And in that kind of caveat, or in that same vein, don't be that person clogging up the security lane because you don't know how to properly go through the checkpoint with your electronics. Okay. Like, if you've got a laptop, make sure that it's in a position that you can just pull that out, pop it into its own bin, set it. The next type of electronic that you need, phone, okay, put it here, like, be ready to go. Know what electronics you have, which ones need to go in their own bin and which ones can stay in the backpack. And like, it takes preparation, but you will save yourself so much stress and like way less hassle, especially at security, if you just know what to do and you don't look like this scared little gamer, like, oh, what? Oh, wait, oh, this too? I have to take this out too? And they like, and then people behind you are staring at you like, yo, my flight leaves in 10 minutes. Hurry up. Don't be that person. Know ahead of time what airport you're going to, what their security is like, and what they prefer for how they want electronics to be handled. Because even different airports in just the United States, you don't even have to go outside of, your own country. Just even in local airports, they can be completely different, and or even just a little bit different, and it can cause a lot of hassle. So do your homework, save yourself that 20-30 minutes in the security line later and spend the 5 minutes on Google to figure out what the security checkpoint regulations are for the electronics you plan on bringing. And then another one, you mentioned rechargeable batteries. I've had rechargeable batteries, but they're no good if they're dead. So don't think, oh, let's say you use your phone and you bring a mobile battery pack. That's your gaming setup, right? Pretty common for most travelers, I would argue. Or your Switch, whatever. Gaming device and battery pack. If you don't have to use that battery pack because you're in your gate and you can plug your phone in and you have your phone there, do that. Don't just, oh, well, my phone's at 50% and I have my battery pack and, like it's fine. I should be able to last the entire way. Don't take the time at the gate, charge your battery up to your phone on 100%. Then you have your battery pack also at full, because you never know, maybe inclement weather or some random delay in the flight or something happens, or you never know, and you're stuck at an airport, and a lot of people are stuck at an airport, and there's no place to charge your devices because 3 hours ago you were fine and you decided not to charge your phone, and now your phone and your battery pack are dead. So recharge when you can, not when you have to, has always been my idea when traveling, because again, you just never know when you're going to be stuck, and you just have to wait it out. And the other thing, and you mentioned it a little bit, is download before traveling, but I also want to throw out there, don't rely on public Wi-Fi. Yes, you can use it even at your hotel. I consider like a hotel public Wi-Fi, right? Because all the guests at a hotel get complimentary Wi-Fi, let's say with their room. So I wouldn't consider that private. That's public Wi-Fi. Don't rely on it. Even if, oh, they've got it, it should be fine. I don't need a very strong connection. It's not secure. It's really not that secure. But also, it can be so inconsistent, and it's not worth it to have to be stranded with a device and nothing to play because you didn't think ahead of time to download single player offline games or anything, and you brought online only games, and the games that you play just don't work, and you're frustrated because everybody is using the hotel Wi-Fi and you're slow and it's lagging your multiplayer games. Be sure to have offline games ready to go. Don't rely on that public Wi-Fi. It's just not worth it. I've learned that experience once. I had like Counter-Strike, League, WoW, and I was like, I've got my games and there's Wi-Fi, and like even if I play WoW, I don't need that strong of an internet connection. I just need an internet connection. Nah, even with just an internet connection, it was so bad. And yes, it's like, oh, you had to have the entire vacation without video games. Poor you. But it's not a great feeling to be unprepared. So be sure to be prepared. Get a plethora of games, and don't rely on that public Wi-Fi. If you out there listening have any gamer guide to the galaxy tips, whether it's traveling or otherwise, be sure to let us know in the comments. Did you enjoy hearing about the co-op sensation We Were Here? We certainly enjoyed playing it. It's free to play, so be sure to go check it out, download it, and also a huge update to Foxhole. Are you excited for Foxhole? I certainly am. I know Rayu is. Lots of updates coming for Foxhole. Be sure to find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. Rate the show. Tweet at us on X at Variety Games Pod. Have a good one.